Hello, I'm Robert Treat. Today I will be presenting my final project for organizational leadership for Texas A&M Commerce. In this presentation, I'll be covering who I was as a leader prior to organizational leadership, what my takeaways were from each course and during my major coursework, and who I am as a leader after my major coursework, and where do I go from here. So to start off, I will speak to who I was as a leader prior to my major coursework, and prior to entering Texas A&M, I was in the United States Army. I spent 11 years in the Army as a non-commissioned officer. I held several positions from squad leader all the way up to first sergeant, and so I had quite a bit of leadership experience. And from a military background. Through my experience of a non-commissioned officer, I learned the importance of leadership by example. You can tell someone to do something all day long, or we call kind of those armchair leaders, where they sit back and they just tell people what to do and how to do it, but they don't actually show them or are willing to do it themselves. Prior to this course, I learned the importance of not asking someone something that you aren't willing to do yourself. And as a leader, I think that's important, and I've carried that on after the military as well. I knew a lot of managers that were self-serving, and they were there to do what they had to do to get promoted only, and not necessarily what was needed for the development of their staff or of their soldiers, and their more self-serving style of managers. I won't call them leaders, I'll call them managers. And then I've known a lot of selfless leaders who put the organization first and put the employees first over their own needs and their own desires and wants, and care more about getting the mission or task done or complete rather than if they get promoted or if they get recognized for what they're doing. It was pretty evident early on in my Army career which leader I wanted to be. I mean, everybody wants to be promoted. I get that. However, I tended to lean more towards if you're not taking care of someone, and you're not accomplishing your task and the missions that you're given, there's no point of you even being in charge of or leading troops, or and transferring that into the civilian world. If you weren't accomplishing the task, when at my first job after the Army, if you didn't accomplish your task, you were replaced pretty quickly, fired or demoted, moved to a new section. So it was important to get the mission done because that costs the company money. And if you don't have employees that believe in you, it makes it getting your job done a lot harder. Prior to this course, I knew planning was important, planning out what you're going to do. And I think I tend to spend more time on the planning phases versus the doing phases of leadership. So spent all this time planning, and then the execution phase was like, all right, let's just see what happens. It was the Army mindset or military mindset that a bad decision was better than indecisiveness or non-decision. So prior to organizational leadership, I would say that I focused more on planning and just let the chips fall where they fall after the execution phase. Also knew that actions came with reward as well as repercussions. As a leader, you have to make decisions. I had to make decisions based on what you knew at the time, and if something happened with it, own up to it. If it didn't go well, it's your fault. Whether good, bad, or indifferent, it's your fault. That's what we were told, and I hold on to that one. That's a good one, because whether you make a good decision or a bad decision, it's easy to own the good ones, but it's not so easy to own the bad ones. So I was taught that some decisions will have a price, and it was important to own up to the bad decisions as well as the good ones, just like I just previously said. Whatever the price is, you have to be willing to accept that as a leader prior to making that decision. And probably the most valuable lesson I learned prior to organizational leadership and the major coursework was failure is sometimes the best teacher. It's a hard lesson. Life lessons sometimes are hard, and learning from failure is probably the best way to remember how not to do something. I guess I'll put it that way. I've learned from failure on multiple, and I've learned from success on multiple different facets of leadership. So, who I was before a leader, a person who made quick decisions instead of no decisions, sometimes bad, sometimes good, and then I owned up to the results. What did I learn in each class? It's going to be the next topic. Issues in organizational leadership. In this class, I learned about organizational types and structures. It also taught me about roles of leaders in organizations and how their behavior have influence in their organization. This class also taught me some common theories of leadership. This was my first introduction into the major coursework. And through this class, I started getting a feel for how the rest of the coursework would go. This particular class focused my attention on the roles of leadership, and from that I started seeing people different in a different light in leadership positions throughout the organization I currently work for. It was a great introduction to what your roles in an organization is, and how to develop yourself as a leader in your organization. One of my favorite classes was data-driven decision making. I kind of think of myself as a numbers guy, and I have an intelligence analyst background, so we make a lot of decisions as a military intelligence analyst. We make a lot of decisions based upon data, and you put your data into a system, it starts showing you trends, starts showing you results. I understand that approach perfectly, and so data-driven decision making was an easy class for me to comprehend. However, I did learn that my skill level on Excel documents and using Microsoft Excel programs were not quite up to par with what it should be, and it forced myself to learn formulas. It forced me to learn how to input data. The project that I completed for that program in particular was eye-opening on how bad my skill set was, but also how tedious maintaining spreadsheets is. I take for granted some of the software at my organization currently and throughout the military that helps you log your data in a much easier format, not readily available to the civilian market. From there, I had actually learned how to input formulas, as I spoke to earlier, and that helped me create a spreadsheet for my current organization so we could track trainers' progress. The current method, or the previous method of tracking, was, hey, how you doing? What are you proficient in? Can you teach this class? Can you train this person? Can you train this software? And it was just yes, no. But from there, we were able to create a survey set and a spreadsheet that I helped create that goes through and tracks each proficiency level of each trainer in order for not only promotion but also for accomplishment of different mission tasks and assignments. So the data-driven decision-making class is probably my favorite class. It did teach me a lot about collecting data and how to use that data in order to make decisions for your organization. The next class was behavior, ethics, and leadership. This class particularly was more difficult than I initially expected. My background in the military provide a baseline of ethical actions based on what environment we're operating in, and each decision, the morality of the decision is based on the environment that you're in and that you're operating in. I've also worked for 2 separate companies after the military, and each one of them had their own take on business ethics, and we were required to take these classes quarterly for one company, semi-annual for the other, and we went over different things about information sharing, data sharing, project sharing, what you can or can't. I work in an environment where you have to have a clearance in order to access information, and you also have to have a need to know in order to share that information with someone. They need to know what the project is or whatever that you're doing in order to share it. So when you leave an organization, all that stuff stays with the organization. It's property of the organization. Anything you create while you're there is part of that organization. You can't share that with another company. In fact, we signed several release documents saying that we created this product. It's now property of the first company was L3 that I worked for. It's now property of L3 Corporation. And you can't share this. You can't sell this to anyone else, and so on and so forth. So that was my first introduction to business ethics, and they essentially block off an entire day for you to go through training, telling you what you can and can't do, what you can and can't share. If you have stuff from other companies, you can't share it with us without their approval. And it was eye-opening. So I thought, oh yeah, I have all this training. However, the coursework provided me a whole different take, or I won't say in a vacuum type response to behavior, ethics, and leadership, but some things that I know from prior experience weren't exactly true for the class. So I had to adapt to that style of learning and style of retaining that information. I'd say one of my favorite courses were the case studies. I thoroughly enjoyed learning from previous other companies' mistakes. I guess I'll put it that way, or which way to take. Usually I tend to lean towards the corporations could do better. They could be better. But in the particular case with the Ford Pinto, Ford, I felt, had on one of the assignments we did, Ford had actually followed the rules to the T that was at the time the government regulations, and made a decision where they could have made the car better for a few dollars more. However, they didn't, but they were still within what was required of them at the time. So I kind of leaned in the company's favor on this one, even though I feel bad for the families. You can't hold a company to a quality control measures, as far as I'm concerned. That doesn't exist. So I kind of leaned towards Ford's take on that one. Leadership theory. Enjoyed learning about the principles and practices. I can apply those in my current organization. Every organization has multiple roles. My organization's no different. After these lessons, I was able to see my leadership's responsibilities at multiple levels in my organization, and I was able to see good and bad habits in my own roles, and And as I fill a role currently as a senior trainer, I see that I have a few leadership isms that I can work on. That I call bad habits. So that those theories kind of assisted me in coming up with who I am as a leader in certain roles in my organization, and kind of who I want to be, or how I want to approach different situations, maybe differently than what I did in the past. Leading change throughout this entire major coursework for organizational leadership. One thing that was consistent was change is necessary for organizations to survive, and leading your employees, leading your people through those changes is necessary, and kind of a necessary evil, if you will. And one thing this course and previous courses have taught me was, as a leader, you have to rise to the challenges of changes for your organization, as well as provide guidance and direction, purpose to your employees in order for them to buy in on the change process. This course also helped me understand different ways to implement changes within your organization, whether large scale or small scale changes. So that was a good course for us to wrap all of the change lessons in this coursework all together at the end, and I enjoyed that. The Capstone, Capstone 1. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a very good writer, and I never have been. It's a skill that I've had to work on throughout high school, throughout the military. Required to write, quite a bit of stuff in the military, and looking at the class requirements is how I approach each lesson. Capstone 1, when I opened it up, I saw that it had some lessons, and I was like, okay, that's not bad. And then it said there was 2 projects at the end of it, and I scrolled down, looked. First one, boom, 16 to 18 pages of writing, of body work, not including your pages. And initially I'm thinking like, oh great, now I'm going to figure out how to do this. I'm not a very good writer, so let's go ahead and I'm going to do it anyway, so I might as well put some effort into learning how to construct a paper correctly, especially one of that length. And it turned out not to be as bad as I thought it was going to be. But initially I was like, oh, 16 to 18 page paper, this is terrible. And then I scrolled down and seen the next one was 18 to 20, so I said, no, I need to do 16 to 18 pages and then 18 to 20 pages. So my initial thought was 40 pages and, dramatic here, but 40 pages in less than 7 weeks. It's doable. It's not bad. And then I had to also, for work, learn quite a bit more for my own job and complete some projects that was required of me. So it was a little overwhelming, to say the least. But I did it, and it wasn't as terrible as I made it out to be. For the first paper, I ended up interviewing a person from my organization, from another company, and essentially got a mentor with that, and it was nice to have someone within my own organization say, hey, come on over here, let me help you out on your journey as a leader in corporate America versus your military experience. And that was a benefit that I received from this course. And in addition to that, I learned that organizations that are nonprofit are not a whole lot different, and the stress levels are not a whole lot different than what you find in for-profit organizations. So I enjoyed those assignments. Describing myself as a leader now, or today after the coursework, I would say is it's the leader that I am now is less focused on making a decision, and more focused on making the right decision with the information that I have at the time, providing the best possible solution, and most cost-effective solution in some cases to current problem sets that I face on a daily in my organization. So I'll say I take more input from subordinates and peers, as well as as well as leaders within my organization when possible, to before making decisions. Um, I'm also a person who uh, has learned to adopt leadership theories and management models throughout that we've learned throughout the courseware, kind of mesh them together um, to fit real world situations, and maybe provide a guideline or a baseline where I can base my decisions off of as a leader. So overall, I'm a more informed, more cautious person when it comes to making decisions after the coursework than prior to the coursework for organizational leadership. And the final question is, where do I go from here? What what do I need to continue my leadership journey? Uh, Partway through this course, I made a decision that I wanted to become a better leader, a better manager, and I decided that I was going to go ahead and pursue a graduate degree. So, where I go from here is to start working on a master's in business and administration, and selecting the right program for my current situation in life, which is I work full time, just like I did throughout this course, and I'll provide for my family, as well as go on like most master students to complete their masters as a goal, as an educational goal. And so my plans are to continue working for my organization. Um, after this, uh, uh, after I complete this bachelor's program, I will be up for a promotion based on my new education and as well as my experience with the company. And then I will start hopefully soon with applying to graduate programs and try to find one that fits me best. What do I need to continue my leadership journey? Through this program and interviews, I found not just one mentor, but two mentors within um, our organization, and both of them are great leaders. And as far as everyone who I've worked with in the past or present, they're great leaders within our organization, and were willing to share and show their experience, and teach me from their failures and their successes. So that was I'll continue to use them while seeking other people and on the outside of my organization to kind of get a more rounded approach to how to lead individuals and how to provide the best possible leader that I can be. Uh, After completing an MBA, I'll probably be seeking out some primary manager jobs, whether within our organization or with the company that I work for in other locations. My ultimate goal is to continue at any level that I work at to be the best leader that I can be, and take the experience that I've gained through the military and through the positions that I currently hold, in order to be a better leader and a better mentor for people who will come along as I age and get smarter, hopefully, and take the lessons I've learned through this class and apply them to my daily leadership goals and try to be the best leader that I can be. That's where I go from here. Outside of that, I do appreciate the input from some of the professors that I had at Texas A&M Commerce, and I appreciate former leadership at L3 who directed me to Texas A&M Commerce for school, and I've really enjoyed learning, and my undergraduate journey. I'm glad to have accomplished it. It has taken me from the time I started college, 14 years and 14 months, and at the end of this semester will be 14 days. So it's kind of unique. It was a 14, 14, 14 from the day that I started my undergraduate journey, and then life happens. So I'm extremely proud to be a graduate of Texas A&M Commerce, and look forward to what the future holds for me.